Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Slipping Out. This time we're going to be slipping into darkness in the depths of the horror game Soma. I've had quite a few requests for horror games recently, and actually this game in particular, so I certainly hope you enjoy the episode. I have had to split the episode into two for this game because there's just so much to show, way too much for just one video, and I've also got a friend of the channel come along to help me too. His name's Drakon. He's going to be explaining things that he's found whilst looking into the game design using the developer tool, which is pretty awesome. First of all, we wake up in our flat, and you'll notice throughout the game the only time you'll see anything of our protagonist Simon is when he's either holding something or sat down during an animation. Any other time he's completely invisible, so just keep that in mind when watching the video.
It feels like milk, but the taste, it's like sucking on a penny.
Alright, once we're up, we can open
coming.
the curtains to let some light in. And there are a couple of things outside that I wanted to show you. Like the birds that we see fly past, they continue to fly up higher into the sky than we'd ever get to see, eventually stalling in mid-air. From this view, you can just about see the edges of where the skybox meet. Therefore, we can see that this section of the map is based inside what looks like a cube skybox. And weirdly, for some reason, we can find a floating vent which seems to have been left behind. This can actually be seen from the window if you care to look hard enough. So we arrive at Mr. Munch's laboratory, and outside we get a great view of what would be Toronto in Canada. So we're just going to take a quick look around, and then I'm going to pass you over to Drakon, who's going to show you something pretty interesting he found whilst looking into the game himself.
Hello there, my name is Drakon. You probably don't know me, but that's okay. As you might hear from my voice, I am German. I hope that's okay as well. Anyway, we are in the level editor of Soma in the office map at the start of the game. And if we go down here, we can find these weird, out of place pink lamps. Well, they are called lamp traps A, B, and C, and you might think they are unused, but actually they are used. As you might guess from the name, lamp drapes, they are connected to the drapes or curtains up here. Now the game script or map script tells the lamps to lit on when the player opens those drapes or curtains. Now this is very interesting because this hints to an older version of this map. Because in the root folder of the Soma game folder, there is a file called, or an archive called Super Secret. It is secured by a password you can find in the game somewhere, or you just Google. And in there you find a showcase of a very earlier Soma version. And basically this whole map is included in there as well, and as soon as the brain scan is done, the map changes a bit, and basically everything outside of these walls gets metal. So I guess those lamps are left over from this version of the map, where basically they would get spawned behind the window with a metal wall alongside. And if a player opens the curtains, they would just let on to give a further impression, wait, something changed. So that's very interesting.
So big thank you to Drakon for supplying his behind the scenes footage. Here's what he was explaining about these lights in action, and you'll be seeing and hearing more of his work throughout these episodes as he has done quite a bit of research into this game. At this point, I'd just like to say I did look behind practically all of the doors we do not enter. I mean, there may have been one or two that I missed because of the size of the game, but generally if I don't show what's behind a door, it's because there is nothing there.
Simon Jarrett, right?
Dr. Munchie?
Well, it's just Mr. Munchie, but I'm working on it. All right, let me just get this out of the way.
This isn't funny.
Now, having said what I did moments ago, there were a couple of doors, or gates in this instance, that I wanted to explore behind. After going through the glass tunnel, we can find these two. One of them says it leads to an observation tower, and another one that has no sign saying where it goes, and we'll be taking this one first. Now, I was expecting that once we got down the steps and around the corner, there would be nothing there. However, check it out, there is a locked door with another section of corridor beyond it. More surprisingly, if we go up the steps into the sealed observation tower, there is a room up here, which looks fairly similar to the tower we go to later in the game. Now, whether these places were going to be used at one point during the game, but then sealed off for the final version for some reason, I'm not too sure, although it looks like that's what's happened. But it was quite surprising to find these places even exist. I was curious to find out where the first monster spawns from, and more so, how do the monsters in the game work? So this first monster spawns just down the corridor from where it appears when the balcony collapses, but what happens when we go up to the next floor? Well, as you may have guessed, the monster disappears when it can no longer find us, and when it can't be seen by the player. It then reappears each time we hit a certain trigger point throughout the map.
What was that?
Simon, come to Lambda.
How do I get there?
There's shuttle trains connecting all the tunnels.
Shit! Where should I? Oh, fuck!
Alright, so we are now outside in the deep blue scary sea, and I've got to say the developers have done a brilliant job of giving the player this under the ocean feel. I do almost feel like I've got thalassophobia under here, even though I'm sat in my chair at home. But what I'm going to do now is just quickly show you the outer bounds for the first section of the main map. Now, for those of you who have been with the channel for quite some time, you'll know that I've been getting out of bounds in games for years, but this is one of the craziest ones I've come across, mainly because it just keeps on going when you wouldn't expect it to. So at this point I got to what I thought was the edge of the map, then I looked down and noticed that there was this cliff face going deeper and deeper, and weirdly, after we fall into the abyss, the ground has these spikes in the landscape that stick up. Now maybe these were randomly generated, but my god, it is incredible to think that all this map is out here, knowing that you never normally see it. Last but not least, in part 1 of this episode, we'll be taking a look at how the shuttle train works. So as you can see, the whole section of tunnel from where we set off right up until the end is loaded before moving. Once we start the shuttle up, and by the way, this is one of the only times Simon's body appears, even though it is hanging out the back of a chair headless, but once we get moving for the first sections of the tunnel, it's the shuttle itself that moves. Once we get to a certain point, the shuttle stops and the tunnel takes over, like we've seen in previous games.
Welcome to Pathos 2. Welcome to Pathos 2.
So at this point I'm no longer moving the camera forward, it's the tunnel that moves past the camera and the shuttle.
Lambda is Pathos 2's shipping dock and transportation hub. There you will be able to find shuttle trains leading to all the other parts of the station and transports to the surface.
Then, as you just saw, once we hit the trigger point, the tunnel stops, the shuttle shoots forward, and the scene continues. So that concludes part 1 of Soma. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be looking at how the airlock water works, where Brandon Wan really is, what Ashley looks like during this dream sequence, and believe me, it is not pretty, and of course the Ark. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Drakon for his contributions to the episode. We'll be back soon, but until then, as always, take care people.